For our next speaker, I would like to invite Adria from General Motors Canada to come up and do the introduction.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Adria. I'm from General Motors of Canada, and I'm really, thank you, honored to be here to introduce Brandie Weikle, B. Weikle on Twitter, and her story, A Media Storm Over Baby Storm.
Thank you very much. Actually, I think I'm mic'd, so I'm good. Thank you. Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit about an unusual story and how it went viral. It's one we refer to in the Toronto Star newsroom as the genderless baby story. Now, of course, it's not really an accurate term. Of course, the baby has a gender. But nevertheless, that's the way we refer to the story. You may remember it. It was the one about the couple who had made the decision to keep their baby's gender a secret, at least for now. Do you remember reading a little bit about it? Yeah. Anyway, to say that Kathy Witterick and David Stocker, this is the baby's parents, didn't know what they were getting into when they agreed to talk to a Toronto Star reporter about their story is really the understatement of the year. They only agreed because they were somehow acquainted with our living editor at the time. I think a neighbor of theirs knew the living editor, and so through hearing about their unconventional decision, they had been approached to ask to speak with us. And what happened next really was kind of crazy. So on Saturday, May 21st, their story went online on parentcentral.ca. That's the Toronto Star's parenting website, of which I'm the editor. Exactly around the same time that the A1 story was hitting doorsteps, around the GTA. And what really struck me, of course I knew that the story would get comment, it would be read, of course, but what struck me was the way, when I tweeted it out, the Twitter feed just, really lit up with people sharing this story, retweeting it, passing it on, commenting. And of course, back at the office, the comment moderator was working really hard as really the world began to weigh in on this story of one family. Some of what we heard in the comments was supportive, but really most of it was pretty vicious. The couple were accused of using Storm as a social experiment. Can you still hear me? Yeah, okay. Of being publicity hounds, which really wasn't accurate at all, of making laughingstocks of their kids and of setting their kids up to be bullied, et cetera, et cetera. Really, what didn't people say about this story? I'm going to talk a little bit more in a minute about the reaction, but I will say this, that there was a more thoughtful tenor to what we were hearing on Twitter, the responses there, a little more thoughtful than what we were seeing in the comments. That was where you could really see the vitriol. It just seems to be where where the trolls come out. It seems to be in the comments, and I think many of you who happen to write blogs have experienced that yourselves. So I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes about how the story spread, because it's kind of interesting. So over the weekend, we held on to this story. Sometimes a big story that we have on the weekend we'll bring it out online on a Friday or a Thursday, so we get that weekday traffic from it, but we didn't do that this time because it was an exclusive and we were waiting until Saturday morning. So over the course of the weekend, their readers of the story were almost exclusively Canadians. But by the time I got to work on Monday, it had appeared everywhere, from Jezebel to a Cottage General store. It was Ann Douglas who told me she overheard somebody talking about it at the Cottage General store. And to me, that Jezebel to general store, that really said it all about just how far-reaching the story went. So it was picked up on late on the Sunday by Fark.com, and on Monday, the Drudge Report linked back to it, and that really was the critical moment in how the story was spread so much further beyond then. Within hours, the online traffic to that story spread. It tripled. And it became the most read story, not just on the little parenting website that I run, but on all of the star.com, not just that day or that week, but ever since the site's inception, which was really something when you think about it. It was more widely read than our G20 stories covering riots in our own streets, more than Haiti, more than Egypt. And of course, you know, a lot of those readers were coming to us because people were sharing the story on Twitter and on Facebook, Tumblr, etc. And so for that story alone, this isn't counting all of the follow-up pieces and everywhere else that wrote about it. For that one article asset on our website, the last we checked a couple days ago, that story had been read 1,862,267 times. So to put that in a bit of context, on a regular day, if a story gets about 70 or 80,000 impressions, we consider it to have really kind of be a very, very solid story. And if something gets to 110 or 120, we consider it to have kind of gone a bit bananas. So anyway, a story on this topic going as big as that really speaks to a shift, I think, in sort of traditional news values, shaping story choice and what's read to something more democratic, more user-driven kind of story selection. And just sort of reference what a woman from the Poynter Institute had to say about it to one of my colleagues. She was saying that it's probably why we're seeing so many stories on sex or the unusual or the quirky rise to the top, because like that's what interests people and it's what they want to share in their Twitter streams and on Facebook. So in the days that followed, it was picked up on CNN's Dr. Drew, Fox, the Daily Mail in the UK, Yahoo's The Lookout. Our intern who wrote the story appeared on the Today Show, which was really something. And of course, that's not even touching all the blogs that picked it up and linked back to it. I'm pretty sure that everyone I knew who writes a blog on parenting weighed in, right? And meanwhile, the family retreated, which, you know, is understandable. They received more than 100 interview requests, which they declined. That's in the first week. And that's including opportunities to come and be on the Today Show themselves, all expenses paid trip to New York for their families. And I really do believe that you can understand their shock at the reaction. I mean, on The View, the ladies on The View, you know, we're talking about her. Joy Behar said something like, I don't get it. It's like the baby was born and they say, congratulations, it's an it. But, you know, and that's just a shtick. Of course, it's just, we can say that it's just a shtick, but I think there's more to it than that. And that's that speaks to this sort of far-reaching entitlement that we have to, you know, to weigh in, to comment and judge on people's parenting and on gender, on sexual orientation. So Storm's mom, I don't know if I mentioned it yet. Yes, that's the baby's name was Storm, so they gave the baby a gender-neutral name, of course. She wrote one response, and in it she said that it was a strong, you know, vitriolic response she just hadn't expected. She'd been in shock from it. And she said that, you know, the voices demonstrated just how much parents really are in the world's critical eye. And that really rung home for me as someone who has been running a parenting website and working in this field for about 10 or 12 years. The way we seem to feel that we can weigh in on how other people are raising their children is really kind of astounding. So I felt that people weren't really, they didn't necessarily read the whole story before they had made up their mind about it. Or they weren't reading closely enough because the couple really hadn't, if you read her response, if you read the story fully, the couple really hadn't picked the idea up off the shelf and decided to go this way with their baby, keep his or her gender a secret for some sort of political statement. They really hadn't. What they had was a child who didn't fit traditional gender mold. That just happened in their family. Jazz, little boy who's now about 5 or 6, his grandparents took him shopping for his first pair of shoes. He gravitated to orange ones with pink flowers on them. He wanted to wear his hair out grow his hair longer. He preferred to wear dresses. And something I think that also was glazed over is that the family never said that they were going to keep the baby's gender under wraps for, you know, for a long time. They just wanted to delay it for a little bit and let him come to it on his own. So the only thing that I can really come up with to explain all the negative reaction is that I guess there's just so much overwhelming choice for parents today in how we raise our children that we're somewhat desperate to grab onto something and sort of say, well, that's wrong. At least I'm not screwing my kids up in that particular way. And, you know, I guess if there's one thing I hope to convey here, it's just maybe a reminder, I think we all know it, but just to give a little extra thought, maybe take one more moment longer before making an opinion on someone else's family, because, oh my God, what if it was your family and the world was watching? Thanks.
Thank you, Brandie.